more than anything, want to be part of this process. This is a really good start, and thank you.
Great, thank you. And if you have names you want to submit.
I'm Parag Mehta. I'm the Public Liaison for the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities at the Presidential Transition Team. There are more than 15 million Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. They represent two distinct categories. There are the Asian Americans, who are immigrants and refugees and their descendants from about 50 different Asian nations, and then the Pacific Islander communities. These are the native peoples of Guam, American Samoa, Hawaii, and the Northern Mariana Islands. These leaders came together to meet with the Presidential Transition Team and talk about their priority issues and personnel recommendations for presidential appointments. We had more than 75 leaders from across the country there in person and joining by phone. The meeting was hosted by Chris Liu, who serves as Executive Director of the Transition Team. He is a Chinese American, served as Barack Obama's Chief of Staff in his Senate office, and will be the White House Cabinet Secretary, which is the liaison to every cabinet agency in the administration.
You need to look no further as a testament to Barack Obama's commitment to diversity than the fact that both of his chiefs of staff in the Senate were Asian Americans. I think that gives you a sense about his commitment to this issue.
The API community came in here first with a lot of praise. In particular, they were really happy about Steve Chu being nominated for Secretary of Energy. Steve, as you might know, is a lab scientist from Berkeley, California. And General Eric Shinseki, who's going to be Secretary of Veterans Affairs. General Shinseki is a Japanese American who is a war hero himself.
It did not escape our notice that Rick Shinseki was named on Pearl Harbor Day as a Japanese American. The irony of that was really quite superb and very meaningful. Or the fact that your Secretary of Energy is a Chinese American scientist from a lab. Well, really thank you. And then I've been trying to let people know that the level of White House appointments is historic as well. We have never had as many Asian Americans in substantive positions in the White House, and we're really looking forward to working with all of you as we go forward.
For a long time, the AAPI community has been seen as sort of a model minority. People think of Asian Americans as highly educated, highly successful in this country, a group that probably doesn't need a whole lot of attention from government. Truth is that there are a lot of disparities that our communities face that never get talked about. So this group of leaders wanted to come in and talk about some of the key issues that they wanted to see addressed in the Obama-Biden administration.
Fund, in coordination with many of the organizations represented here today, conducted an exit poll of 16,600 Asian American voters. And we heard from thousands of them that they needed language assistants, translators, interpreters at the polling places.
We have to make sure that people who don't speak English have an ability to access. And in our communities, 60% of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have limited English proficiency. That's particularly important when we talk about healthcare and job opportunities. This group wanted to make it very clear that they had priorities when it came to being vigilant about civil rights, especially in a post-9/11 era.
I want to just quickly talk a little bit about the fact that since 9/11, South Asians, Arab Americans, Sikhs, and Muslims have really been targeted by both governmental initiatives as well as public actions. In 2003, for example, the FBI reported a 1,400% increase in incidences of violence against Muslims, and these incidences continue to this day.
What we hope to do is have the Obama-Biden administration implement review processes within the departments that actually talk to communities that are being affected prior to the implementation of these policies and guidelines. So a number of mid-level folks in the Department of Homeland Security and DOJ have done that already, and we want to see these sorts of meetings continue and flourish.
The census comes up, I think, in almost every meeting we have here because in 2010 we're going to count this country, and APIs want to make sure that when we count the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, that we count them correctly. In order to understand our needs and our disparities and our concerns, you have to count us correctly. You have to count the individual populations. We also talked about issues like the digital divide. We talked about the importance of making sure that technology makes it out to our folks in the Pacific Islands. A lot of people don't realize this, but the people, the native peoples who live in Guam and Samoa and even in Hawaii face huge disparities when it comes to accessing education because they don't have broadband, they don't have internet, they don't have the computers. The president-elect likes to joke that he is himself an honorary Asian American. Many people know that his sister Maya is half Indonesian and his brother-in-law Conrad is Chinese Canadian. This is the modern American family, and I think the diversity that you're seeing in the Obama-Biden administration reflects the changes that are happening in our country.
I'm starting to call this the White House Initiative on API. APIs 3.0. So we know that in this new administration that Asian American and Pacific Islander issues will be integrated like they never have been before. We're really interested essentially in the essence of the White House initiative on APIs, to focus on underserved Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, to have that high level of focus across federal agencies, to keep it broad.
My parents came to this country as immigrants back in 1972, before I was even born. And one of the things that makes me really proud of the way we have run this administration and this transition is that we're going to see Asian Americans throughout the government, not just doing Asian American specific work. But visibility is really important for our community because we're still a relatively new minority to most Americans. We're a community that people are getting to know better and better every day. And to see Asian Americans working throughout the Obama administration really is good for us because it shows to our community that we have a seat at the table and a voice in the decision-making process.